Today's episode, I get to interview a great friend from Northern Illinois University. We discuss a few topics that I feel will definitely be helpful for a lot of different people. So if I was you, I would stay tuned until after the music. You're about to listen to a great episode of the Laz and B Experience podcast. Within this episode, my hope is that you obtain something that will help you find your success. So grab a pen, get your paper, your favorite snack or drink, and really listen to what I have to say. I truly believe it can be what you need to get you to your next level in life. So grab a seat and enjoy the ride, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to another episode of the Laz and B Experience podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Today I have a very special guest with me, and I say this every time, and I'm going to continue saying it. All my guests are very special. But
I'm the most special.
But this is a very special guest because we this is another person I went to NIU with, or Northern Illinois University with. We were both CAs or community advisors within residence hall, and we got to build a relationship that way. I don't think we were ever like in the same staff, but I think we're both in Neptune, right?
Yeah, we saw each other pretty closely. Yeah.
So without further ado, I will like to introduce my guest for today as Ari Owens. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
I do have, I know Reggie, when I was interviewing him, he was like adding the applause, and I can actually do that.
Oh, I love that.
But I was like, let me do that in the after, just in case I don't want to do it. But yeah, definitely.
Well, if Reggie got applause, I want applause. Just to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. If one person gets applause,
everybody does.
And I might do that just to add it.
I support it. I'm here for it.
So let's get started. So if you can, just tell us a little bit about you and then your involvement.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, we went to NIU together, and I actually work at NIU now professionally. I work for academic diversity, equity, and inclusion. Specifically, I serve as the associate director for women, gender, and multiracial support. So a lot of like student advocacy programming events centered around diversity and equity. And then I'm also on the school board in DeKalb. I'm the secretary on the Board of Education. And
I saw that. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I'm one of the youngest people ever to be elected. I was 27 when I was elected. I'm 28 now. So that has been very interesting and exciting and a lot of other things, but those are the words I'll use now to describe that experience. And then also I work part-time at DeKalb's local domestic violence and sexual assault shelter, Safe Passage. And I'm a big sister. Family is really important to me. I always like
big brothers, big sisters?
Well, no, like a literal big sister. You got so excited. I'm so sorry to disappoint you. I did do that program for a little bit, but then like it kind of like phased out. But like an actual.
The reason I asked is I'm actually a big brother with the program.
Oh, see, I should have known my audience. Yeah, I did it for a little bit, and then it kind of fizzled out. But no, like my actual siblings, 2 younger sisters. I just feel so bad, like I disappointed you. You look so excited. But me and my sisters, there's a big age gap between us, so like heavy emphasis on the big sister. It's a 16 and 18-year age difference. And then I have a brother who's closer in age too, and so I just take being a big sister really seriously because like it is such a big age gap, especially with my sisters. And also, last but not least, I have an empowerment agency called Ari Owens. I haven't been able to be as active in that as I would have liked to been as of recently, just because, as you can imagine, having several jobs and, being a family-oriented person and being on the school board, I only have so much time and energy. But with Ari Owens, I do a lot of workshops and talks related to mixed race identity and also LGBTQ plus allyship. And I also offer writing support, which is like random, but I love to help people improve their writing and just edit stuff. I have a degree in English, so it's just a nice way to make
I don't know
money
if you
on the
remember,
side.
but when I started my blog, which I still do in conjunction with my podcast, I asked you to review some of it. So
it's funny because I had forgotten about that, but then when we were like coordinating this, I was like, oh, he's already in my inbox. Oh, so yeah, full circle moment for sure.
Definitely. But I forgot to also kind of introduce what we're going to be talking about, even though you can hopefully tell by the title. But there's a couple topics we'll be covering today. First being introverts and how to be successful as an introvert. Then we go into family first, the people who have done things in their family as the first person to do it, like going to college or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be talking about something I think is very important, which is self-care. So those are the 3 topics we will be covering today. We had Ari already introduce herself, but let's get into the first topic, and let's get into what do you mean when you say introvert, or what is an introvert?
Yeah, so for me, being an introvert means that I really value time to myself. Like, I really enjoy being alone. And I think that surprises people because, like, for my job and the things that I do in volunteer work, I have to be an extrovert. I always say, like, I deserve an Oscar for pretending to be an extrovert because I do it so well. Like, I could really play the part. But, you know, being an introvert to me is like having time to, like, process alone and reflect alone. Just time to myself without anybody to talk to, anybody to influence me. Just, like, really some great quality alone time. And valuing that is what I mean when I say I'm an introvert. So
yeah, I agree, and I also self-identify as an introvert as well. And then I'm actually going to have an episode about introverts and how to kind of succeed in an introverted society. At least that's what I think I called it. But
an extroverted society.
Extroverts, yes. Uh-huh. Thank you. But I see myself as an introvert because even though there are times where I like to be around people and talk to people and be extroverted, I feel that's taking away my energy. Mm-hmm. I feel like at a certain point, it's not that I am upset or like tired really. It's just like my energy is drained. So I can still be in that same environment. I just won't be as active in that environment.
Yes, like it can be draining. You need that like recharge time. Mm-hmm. Like some people recharge by being around others, and then there's us who's like, please leave me alone for a little bit and I'll come back better. Like,
and it's not like I can sit and see people like dancing or conversating and stuff and still have a good time.
Right, like just being there, just not in the center of attention maybe.
Exactly. And I don't like to be the center of attention even when I do have energy.
Me neither.
So, being an introvert, what are your thoughts on being a leader and being an introvert?
Yeah, I think being a leader and being an introvert, it's tough. I think leadership can really be designed for the extroverts, like the people who want to be, you know, front and center, like leading the protest, leading the march, like running the meeting, like, you know. But I think a lot of qualities and traits that introverts have are just as important, you know, like maybe you don't want to be the person who's leading the event, but you're doing the behind the scenes work, you know? Yeah. Like, for example, I work with students and like they'll do protests and stuff. Like, I'll help them write their speeches. Like, that's a very important trait of a leader, you know, because they can't just get up there and say anything.
I mean, unless you're good at it.
Right, exactly.
Most people are not born with that ability. Just to
they get better in college, but sometimes, you know, they're not there. So, you know, that's important. And I think something else that's really cool about introverts is I think we pay like extra attention to detail. Like, we're observers, we see things. And so like, you know, if you're planning a large scale event or you're trying to like get something organized, you can kind of see the potential things that would go wrong, or like, this person might not mesh with this person, or like they're gonna need this and they need this development. Like, then our ability to see those things, and then you could have those individual conversations or like do that behind the scenes work. And so I feel like introverts don't get enough credit for like the behind the scenes work that we do and the things like that we're able to observe, and like some of the nuances we're able to address that maybe, you know, an extrovert will maybe notice, but they're so busy, you know, being charming and doing all that stuff that like they haven't seen what we've already like analyzed and thought about. And so I think introvert leaders are great. And, you know, even if we have to tap into that extroversion, it's possible. I think it just takes us a little bit more mental energy. You know, like if I know, like we have this annual cultural sisterhood summit, I know I'm gonna have to get up there and like say opening remarks. I've been thinking about it since last year, like, you know, and so it's like I can do it. I just have to like prepare myself.
Yes, that's
and like exactly. And I also learned recently about myself, like if I have a big event and like something where I have to be really public facing, I need to have a plan afterwards, because if not, I'll just like go sit in my car and like think about like, what did I say, how did I look? But like I just need something to chill, like a plan for myself. So I think it's definitely possible to be a leader as an introvert. We just show up in different ways, and again, we can perform as extroverts. So
yeah. And then I was gonna say, as an introverted leader, also because you're not the one trying to get all the spotlight, like you're willing to give it to your team. Which
absolutely.
A lot of people, like at least in today's time, like if they feel like they're not wanted or needed or appreciated, they want to go somewhere where they are.
Absolutely.
So being that introverted leader, you're willing to give that to them and let them know that you are like needed and you are appreciated. So
absolutely,
I think that's another good trait of being a introverted leader.
I agree.
So we talked about being introvert. I don't know why I keep saying
it's okay.
Extrovert, but
it's the pressure. We live in an extrovert society.
What are some tips you can give an introvert to help them kind of stand out when it comes to being given opportunities?
Yes. I would say a tip that I have, well, I have two. And the first one is do your research. So again, if you're a person who doesn't naturally want to like work the room and get in front of a crowd and like talk to that person you need to talk to, like you can go on LinkedIn and like read about people. Like you can join a Facebook group and like figure out the same things that you can maybe gain from a conversation. Like there's ways to find that information elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And also like doing your research. In addition to that, I would say really knowing yourself and your talents. So then you can be like ready for the opportunities when they come your way. Because I think as introverts, well, at least me, I'll speak for myself, and this might be anxiety as well, but I think part of my introversion is like because I do think so deeply about everything. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes when I'm put on the spot, I feel like, well, I don't know, like which angle should I take, which approach should I do it? So I would say like, you know, when you're preparing for an opportunity or interested in something, kind of have like some bullet points ready of like, mm-hmm. this is what I bring to the table. Like if this is the opportunity that I'm seeking and I get a chance to talk about it with someone, have these two things ready to say, you know? And I like to talk to myself like in the mirror, like Issa Rae, like on Insecure, like I do that. Like I'm not as funny, but like I will literally like practice like talking to myself.
Yes, I do that in the car.
Thank you. Okay. And like sometimes I'm like, please don't let anybody be looking at me because this is so embarrassing. Like, but yes, like I think that really helps us practice for like when we do have those moments and those opportunities. So like, you know, it's not the first time we're saying mm-hmm. or it's not the first time we're thinking about it. And again, just taking a moment to like narrow down some specific talking points, which that's actually something I learned in my school board campaign because, you know, my whole campaign was, I ran on the idea that I wanted to make schools, I wanted to make children feel safe, supported, and celebrated at school. So like safety, support, and celebration. Like anytime anybody asked me a question, I could bring it back to those three things. Now, I could give you like 80 bullet points for what those things mean, but at the end of the day, if I could just bring it back to those three things. So I would say, you know, when it comes for tips to standing out, just be ready. Know mm-hmm. yourself and what you can bring, and then do your research too.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when I go to a lot of networking events, especially back in Indy where I live right now. On my way to the networking event, one thing I make sure I understand is like what type of people is going to be there.
Yes.
Once I understand like those type of people and what I should be bringing to the table, then I'm like, okay, what kind of questions I can ask, what kind of stuff I should be prepared for. So definitely preparing ahead of time. And sometimes you don't have to prepare weeks in advance. Mm-mm. Sometimes it's just that the day before, maybe the ride over or whatever.
Time, yeah.
But I know for me, like you were saying earlier, like giving a speech or something, I definitely got to prepare like maybe a week or so in advance.
And even, I'm funny, I'll do a thing while I write down like, oh, prepare for this. But sometimes it'll just be on my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm in the shower today, and now's the time I'm just going to start talking to myself about it. Like, it'll hit you like that. So
it doesn't have to be anything formal, just something like,
just give yourself some time.
Getting ready for work or getting ready for school, just do something mm-hmm. to get you more like ready. And I think it might actually be better to do it during those times because it's like, you're more comfortable during those times. You like, you know, it's a routine, so you know what you're doing. So as you're like getting ready, you can just kind of talk it out.
Yep, so. I agree.
So let's move on to our next topic, which is about first in the family of doing something. Mm-hmm. So what are some common things that you see people maybe the first in their family to do?
Yeah. I would say, well, the obvious one, working in higher education, is going to college. I work with a lot of students who they're the first person to go to college in their family. And it may be that their parents have like some sort of other like trade skills or education, but like they're the first one to be on a college campus. Or it's like they're immigrants and they're the first person to do anything, you know, remotely like college. And so I see that a lot. I see students trying to enter into fields that, you know, they don't have any family members who are in. So I would say those are the most common ones. And I would also say something that I'm seeing more is students, and not just students, again, I'm biased because I work with a lot of students, but in general, I think when it comes to like mental health and therapy, being the first person in your family to seek out a counselor, a therapist, to talk to a psychiatrist, even mention like medication, like those kind of things, that's something that I see a lot. And even on a smaller level on mental health, like boundaries, like I'm the first person in my family to set a boundary. And how that doesn't always go over well because elders don't always like boundaries. They take that as, disrespect or, oh, you're too good for us. And it's like, no, I'm over here just trying to protect my peace. And so I would say those are some big ones that I see.
So what is some advice you can give them to like get through that or accomplish those goals that they're trying to accomplish?
A few things. I would say the biggest thing is to seek support, because when you're the first person to do something, you don't know what you don't know. And so as you're figuring out, oh, I don't know, there's a lot of things I need help on, not being afraid to ask for help. I think we're socialized to think that asking for help is a weakness or it's bad. And, particularly when you're the first to do something, I think there's a pressure of like, well, I can't ask for help. Like I'm setting the tone. I'm being a trendsetter. And it's like, you can do that and also need help. And you probably do need help. And there are people who are there to help you, because I think I've been the first time familiar to do a lot of things, and I know I feel that pressure of like, well, I'm just gonna like keep moving like I always have, and just be ambitious and just be a doer and like go do it. But again, that doesn't mean you're not gonna need help, because you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes I think people who are the first to do something, we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and like it makes sense why we do it, because we want to be successful. We want people coming up after us to, that's why we're doing it. We want more people to do whatever the thing is. And so not being afraid to seek support, because being the first is already like a hard enough task to take on. So why make it harder for yourself by not accepting support? And I think you'll be surprised by how many people want to support you. Not always, there's going to be some haters, but generally like there are people who want to support you and help you and who have had a similar experience. So I would say seeking support. I would also say don't like take other people's perceptions of you or like misunderstandings of you personally. And I guess to elaborate a little more, like when you are the first, like I see the attitude of like, oh, like you think you're better than us because like you went to college or this and that, or you think you're so, and it's like, no, I don't think any of that. Like I'm out here struggling, like fighting for my life, just trying to like be successful. And I think an example I think about is my grandparents, which they don't have that attitude. They think I'm amazing and this is the best thing in the world. But I will say, so I made a commitment to call my grandparents every single week. And for a long time, I would call them every week on Sunday. But I was having a very, very stressful time with the school board. Like I was just going through a lot, and I realized I went a couple weeks without calling them, and I felt bad because I know like they're gonna give me a hard time, and they did give me a hard time. And I realized like I had to tell them like, y'all, like I'm not calling you because I don't want to talk to you or because like I'm too busy for you. Like I'm just been really stressed. And like I opened up to them about some of like the things I was dealing with, and they're like, wow, well like now that you told us that, like we feel bad for you, like like get some rest, like we're here for you. And so I think sometimes when you are the first to do something, you may be a little bit distant or a little bit absent. You might not be able to be as present as you would like to be with family or friends or loved ones. And they can take that as like, oh, like bougie or like, bigger and better things. But it's like, no, like I'm just trying to figure this out. And it's not always, that's not always obvious. So I would say don't take it personal. People give you a hard time. And also if they're people who are really important to you, like, don't be afraid to explain to them what you're going through. And because that's another thing, I'm like, I'm not going to explain to them because they would never get it. They might not get the formal policy and procedures, but like they know what it's like when somebody hurts your feelings. They know what it's like when you feel like you're not good enough. Like those are human emotions. So just taking the time to explain to people like what it is that you're doing, if that's going to help bring you some personal peace, and if that's going to help them understand your life a little bit more. So, yeah.
And then you talked about how you shouldn't take things personal as far as like someone saying, can you kind of repeat what you said?
Yeah, I was saying like sometimes people have attitude of like, oh, you think you're better than us, or you think you're smarter, like because you have these accomplishments.
Yeah. So, and then on the other, I guess, side of that is that don't let somebody who says something like, why do you think you can do something or because you have nobody else who came before you? Like, don't give up just because someone else don't think you can do something.
Yep, absolutely.
So definitely like keep going. Again, use the resources around you, ask for help and that kind of thing. So what are some resources that people can go to when they need help or they're having trouble or feel like they can't fit in or don't fit in?
I'm a big podcast nerd, which I know that's not like a specific resource, but I think
it can be a resource.
Yes, like what you're doing, bringing out all these wonderful people to share resources. But I think especially as an introvert too, like if you struggle with like finding community or feeling like you don't have support, podcasts are like a really good way to, first of all, listen that like other people are having similar struggles. And usually if it's like a good podcast, like they'll have links and their notes and stuff like that. And so I would say online community is big, whether it's a podcast, again, whether it's like a Facebook group. There's literally a Facebook group for everything. Yeah. Like, and if you're not multiple, on Facebook, like so many. But again, LinkedIn, like Instagram, like the internet is, it's scary, but it's also a really beautiful tool. Like you'll be surprised at how many resources are available, and also free resources. Like I know there's coaching and stuff that people pay for, which is like great if you're a coach, get your money, but also there's a lot of free resources. So I recommend whatever it is that you're looking for support for, whether it's like, mental health or it's, career coaching, go online and like see what's out there. And also just finding your network. I feel like when you find, and what I mean by that is just like a really good group of people. And like those can be mentors, those can be friends with connections. But I feel like the greatest resources you can find always come from some kind of personal relationship you have.
Yeah.
And again, I know that can be tough if you're introverted and like if you didn't go to school and you weren't involved in 87 organizations. But just like look around, I think you'll be surprised with the resources that become available when you're like intentional about the people who are in your corner. And so, yeah, that's what I think. Definitely finding your people and just getting on the internet.
So, I guess going back to being an introvert and then potentially being the first in your family to do something like going to school, like what advice do you give that person to like step out of the comfort zone to seek those resources that they might need?
Yeah. It's funny. I like to push back when people talk about like stepping out of your comfort zone, because I think you can accomplish a lot of things from within your comfort zone as well.
Okay.
So I just got to say that. I got to go on record saying that. You don't always have to be like uncomfortable to make these connections. You do have to challenge yourself a little bit, but I don't think it has to come at the like extent of your comfort. And I would say advice for like stepping out of your comfort zone, like as an introvert to get involved, is I would say get focused. And I know that sounds like maybe a little cliche, but if you're really intentional about what you want to be involved with, I think that makes the process easier. And, this is something I see too with people who are like the first to go to college. When you have like a little bit of potential, you'll get pulled in so many different directions. People want you to lead this, do this, do this, do that. But if you're true to like yourself and your interests and what you want, I feel like that is easier for you to seek out opportunities if you can be specific and you can focus. And I would say like some small challenges, try to go outside more. Like, if you're a person who does everything at your apartment or like, your residence hall, like go sit in the lobby, go to like, it's okay. Like, you can get outside for a little bit. I feel like that's like a safe enough challenge. And just don't be afraid to ask questions of people who are in roles that you want to be in or are involved in opportunities that you see yourself being involved with. Just go for it. Just ask. The worst someone can say is no. They could be mean to you, but like that's a reflection of them, not you. So there's nothing wrong with asking for what you want. And like I think that's a good way to get new experiences, is just being curious and being focused on what it is that you want.
So going back to like the family and being supportive, or hopefully your family being supportive of you if you're the first in the family to do something, what is a way for that person to still stay connected to their family but don't feel like they're being distracted by their family or being discouraged by their family?
This is such a good question. And when I read it, I thought about it for a long time, because I'm like, man, I feel like I'm still like working on this. Because yeah, like when you are the first to do something, it does require a level of focus, and your loved ones can be a distraction. Not that like that's a bad thing, but like it's just true. There's only so many hours in a day. So for me, I would say a way you can stay connected with them and like minimize the distraction is being really intentional about your time. So like I said, I call my grandparents every Sunday. So, hopefully nothing happens and I have the energy because, I'll be tired, but I call them every Sunday. Or like my best friend, if I'm thinking about her, I'll send her a voice note or a text. And so it's like, I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure. Like I have to show up to every event and do everything. But you don't have to do that. Like you can just make sure that when you do show up, you make it count, that you're being present with people, letting them know when they're on your mind. And just being creative too. Like sometimes I'll want to call someone, like I'll be thinking about them all week, but I'll be so busy. And then like I'll be in line at the grocery store. Like, okay, I'll call them now. Like, I mean, if you don't want people in your business on your call when you're at the grocery store, that's a little different. But just like being really creative and taking the pockets of time that you do have and using it to reach out. And I would also say a good way to stay connected with them and like not be distracted is to eliminate like the actual negative distractions you have. So like me, for example, if I'm like on Instagram for 2 hours, like that wasn't necessary. Like I could be on Instagram for like 30 minutes and use the other time to like call my dad or check in on my mom. I feel like we live in such an overstimulating world. Like there's so many distractions, but I found that when I am able to cut out or minimize the things that are not like improving the quality of my life, it frees more time and space and energy for my family and my loved ones and the people and things that are actually important to me.
And I think it's one of the most important things is to communicate with your family. Like,
absolutely.
Let them know, like you were saying earlier, like if you're overwhelmed, let them know that, because I'm pretty sure they don't want you to feel that way.
Exactly.
So if you tell them, they're like, okay, I understand. If you call me when you can or whatever, something like that. But then also it's important, the little things are important too. So maybe you can't go to your cousin's birthday party or something like that, but you can always call them on their birthday or send them a text or send them a voice note or something. So those little things can definitely also add up.
Absolutely.
Keep you connected with them without hopefully being distracted from them.
Yeah, and I agree that communication is a big one. Like, I remember me and my best friend, we had like a falling out once when I was in school. She was like, I feel like I have to make an appointment just to speak to you. And I was like, oh my, I would never want you to feel that way. Like, it's not that way at all. Like, I'm just so stressed and you can call me whenever. And I might not answer, but I'll text you and tell you when I can call you back. So, just that communication piece. Because there's so many, like, I think we make so many assumptions about each other, and sometimes like you just have to say like, no, it's not that, it's this. I love you and I care about you. It could be that simple.
I don't know, for me I feel like being on a schedule or putting somebody on a schedule is not a bad thing. It's actually, I think it's a good thing, because I'm
that's
making you
I
a
care about you.
priority.
Yes.
Like I'm like saying I'm going to talk to you at this time. Like I have other things to do, so I'm making sure that I make sure you're in that thing. So
I agree. Everybody doesn't see it that way, but I absolutely agree. I was like, are you kidding? The people who want to be on my schedule, and girl, you're on it. Like, but yeah, I agree.
But I wouldn't go at it as like that. But I was
right,
like,
I didn't say that. But no, I hear you and I agree for sure.
So what is some advice you can give a first in family to do something to make sure that they accomplish their goals? Because sometimes, especially being the first, you don't have the footprint or the blueprint or the people who are in front of you to kind of guide you. So you're the person who's kind of doing the guiding. So
yeah,
what are some things that can help them still be successful at whatever they're working towards?
One thing I would say, I lost my train of thought. I have all these notes and I'm trying to figure out what I want to say first. I would say to pace yourself. I think you can get burnt out really quickly when you're the first to do something, because you're like, well, if I'm the first, like I want to do it the right way. Like I want to, do it big, but it's like, you should really like think about how you can sustain yourself and your energy and really pace yourself. I would say that. I would also say take the pressure off of yourself, which is like so much easier said than done. And I know, because it's something that I like have struggled with, and I do struggle with a little bit. Sometimes I feel like we put an imaginary pressure on ourselves. Like I'll like sit and think, I'll reflect on a Sunday about like, man, all the stuff I didn't accomplish, or, thinking back this time last year, these are all the things I thought I would have done, but I've only like, made it halfway through the list. Meanwhile, everybody's looking at me like, wow, oh my God, like they're just so, impressed with me. And so I think when you're the first to do something, we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And it's like, is this pressure coming from like a real place, or like, am I making this up? Is this just an imaginary pressure? And it's usually imaginary. And like, I don't mean to like downplay it, because the pressure does come from, wanting to do well. And like, there's a reason for that. And usually when you're the first person to do something, it's because you're trying to, have some kind of financial gain or some kind of like spiritual you're trying to elevate yourself, your family, your loved ones in some kind of way, so you take that serious. But it's like, I think sometimes by putting too much pressure on ourselves, we downplay the influence that we do have. We downplay the
work,
the strides we have.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I feel like, and I don't know if that's like a perfectionist thing as well, but yeah, so I would say just pace yourself and also take the pressure off of yourself. Like a little healthy pressure is good because you want to stick to your goals and what you set out to accomplish. But there's no reason to be harder on yourself than anybody else is being on you. Like you've already, the fact that you're accomplishing, you're the first to do something, period. The story could end there and that'll be great. You did it, you know, anything else you do is a bonus. And I think just keeping that in mind and also remembering like, I'm the first to do this. I had no blueprint, kind of like you said. Like there was literally nothing, no guide for me. In what other area do you do things where you have no guidance, you have no support, you have no, you know, mentorship? And so I think just having some grace with yourself is probably the biggest theme in all the things I've said.
Grace and patience with yourself.
And for me, I'm such a hypocrite because I will have so much grace and patience for everyone else. But when it comes to me, I'm like, oh, you're stupid. You should have like accomplished this already. But it's like, why am I talking to myself this way? So, yeah.
And then I think another thing is don't be afraid to fail. Like we're all going to fail at whatever we're working on, whether no matter what it is, we're going to fail. So just learn from what happened and then grow from it and then keep it moving. Because if you focus too much on your failures, it can like kind of discourage you from continuing. So you want to definitely take them in, understand what you did wrong, and then make it right for the future.
I agree.
So now we can move on to our last topic, which I think is going to be my favorite topic to talk about. So what is self-care? Why is self-care important when it comes to being successful?
Self-care is important when it comes to being successful because you are the root of your success. Like if you're not okay, you can't produce. If you're not okay, you can't influence. Literally, it's the root of everything. Like if you're physically unwell, if you're mentally unwell, you're not going to be doing whatever vision you have, you're not going to see it through. You're not going to see it through the way you intended. It's going to be lackluster. It's going to be half-assed. I'm sorry. I can say bad words on here. It's going to be, you know, not fully what you want it to be. And so I think you have to protect yourself because yourself, like you are the key player in all of this. And if you're not okay, it's going to show in your work. It's going to show in whatever you're trying to do. So you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then it can be hard because like you could put so much on yourself where it feel like I can't take a rest because if I take a rest, then I'm going to fail at what I'm trying to accomplish. But it can definitely be the opposite where if you're not taking any rest or you're not self-caring for yourself, like it's going to get worse for you. Like I remember I used to work full-time and work over 40 hours a week and still take a full load of classes. And like I had no self-care. I was sleeping maybe 4 hours a night or whatever. And it was terrible. And I was like, I'm doing this so I can hurry up and graduate. And that just made things worse because I wasn't able to really concentrate when it was time to study for my exams and do my homework. And then I wasn't getting any rest. So I couldn't like really do anything. So, I mean, even right now, because I'm still working on my bachelor's degree to get my degree in electrical engineering. So right now I'm taking only one class this coming semester.
Good. You're pacing yourself. That's
pacing myself. And I mean, it's my course. So it's like when I graduate, that's when I graduate. So you can't like think about what other people think about what you're working on, or you can't look at somebody else and be like, man, they're there, but I'm here. Like your race is your race. You don't have no idea how they got to where they are. You don't know who helped them or how long it took them to get to where they are. So you got to stay on your race and you got to like take care of yourself because like if you don't, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be even harder for you to really be successful.
And I would say when you don't take care of yourself, it shows. And for me, when I struggle, like, oh, I can't really take care of myself how I want to because people are counting on me, people are depending on me. And while that may be true, like if people who you want to have fulfilling lives see you not sleeping, they see you like having no boundaries, like you're normalizing that for them. And you don't want that. Like you don't want them to sacrifice themselves to have a fulfilling life. So you're showing them that that's okay. And so I think when I struggle with that and feel guilt, I'm like, what example would I want to set for my sisters? What example would I want to set for my students? It will be okay. Like, yes, I'm an influential person, but I'm not the only one. The world will keep spinning. It will be okay if I take a nap, if I leave a little early today, if I take a day off. It's gonna be fine.
I think one of the biggest thing is like with this social media, a lot of people are seeing like people, you need to grind all day, you need to do all of this.
Culture. It's
like,
not for me.
No sleep, like you sleep when you're dead, but
like,
you gonna die early.
Exactly.
If you don't take no sleep now.
Exactly.
Like your body is going to get what it needs. So if you're up 48 hours, your body is gonna make you go to sleep. And if you're sleeping while if you're driving or something, like it can it'd be very bad.
Exactly.
So definitely take care of yourself. But some people might have trouble or don't know what to do. So what are some different types or different ways people can have self-care?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, any time that you could slow down or take a break. And so I know everyone doesn't have like the privilege or luxury to like take a day off or go on vacation, right? Go to a spa. Like that's not reasonable. But little things like, on your lunch break, taking a couple minutes in your car to meditate before you go back in. Taking a lunch to yourself if you want that, shout out to the introverts. I remember when I was in grad school, I was told like, you need to have lunch with your coworkers more. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, no, I have to be with y'all all day. Like I'm going to take that hour to myself and listen to my music, do whatever I want to do. And so I would say like, just, push back on moments where you are able to slow down and take a break and take that break, like if you need to, especially if you're working 9 to 5, like if you need to go outside and take a little walk, do that. Just finding moments where you can slow down. I feel like our society is such a fast-paced sense of urgency, like everything needs to be done now. And most of us aren't working in like crisis emergency room work where that has to be true for us. Shout out to people who do that because but like for most of us that is not our reality. So like we can pause, we can take a break. And again, I think it's a powerful example when you do that. And so any moment you can find to just kind of like rest and slow down and like literally just breathe, like take a breath. If you need to shut your door and like listen to your favorite song or like call somebody or listen to a podcast, like whatever makes you feel like you can take a break and slow down, incorporating that into your everyday life. And that's the thing about self-care. I feel like people confuse self-care and like treating yourself, like treating yourself is expensive, but taking care of yourself doesn't have to be expensive, like taking care of yourself is just being intentional, like, and even like physically slowing down. Like, why are you in a rush? Like, why are you eating in your car? You could bring your food at home when you eat it. Like, that's something I do. I'm a notorious eat in my car person. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I have a table in my apartment. But yeah, like cooking a meal when you can, like just little things that you can do every day for yourself to make you feel better.
Yeah, I really like what you were saying about like slowing down. Like it's very important. Like we live in this society where everything is hurry up and do this. As soon as you get done with doing this, you got to do something else. Well, for self-care, kind of take that away and kind of be slow about it. Kind of think about what you're doing or not think about what you're doing. Just don't do anything. So, yeah.
I feel like when we're rushing to do things, like they don't go well. So why wouldn't we apply that same concept to us as people?
I guess this is a similar question that I just asked, but what are some ways, including ways for people who are like on a budget to give themselves self-care or do self-care activities?
I would say just do more stuff that you like actually enjoy and like. So if you like to read, try to like read a couple pages before bed or try to read a couple pages when you wake up in the morning. If you like to, notice how you feel when you watch certain things, when you're viewing certain things, and just incorporating more of that into your life. I'd say be careful with indulgence too, because you might like to drink and like do other things, which like that's great every once in a while, but just, being mindful of the difference between like self-indulgence and self-care. But just whatever you like, finding ways to do more of that. And I realize too, this is something I learned with students. A lot of them, they don't know what self-care is because they've always been in positions to like provide for others and do stuff, and they are like a part of that grind culture. So if like that's you and you're like, I wouldn't even know where to begin, like just just ask yourself, like, what do I enjoy outside of like providing for others? What makes me feel happy? What makes me feel good? Like really exploring that and incorporating more of that into your everyday life.
Or ask somebody and see what they like to do and see, and then go do that to see if you also like to do it. And if it's not, just keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
If it is, then you can definitely use that.
Find whatever works for you. Yeah.
What advice would you give people who may have a hard time doing self-care or who are stressed too much to really think about self-care?
That's a good question. I took a deep breath because it's something I was thinking about a lot recently. I feel like I'll go in phases where I'm like really good with my self-care, and then I'll kind of get off, and like I need to have like a reset moment with myself, which is also something I think we should normalize, because I think there's this myth like, oh, once you learn self-care, like you got it. No, like things happen, like horrible.
Change.
Exactly. You know, when you experience life changes, things change, food change, relationships change. That's going to change your like self-care habits. So I guess some advice I would have when it comes to like, if you struggle with that or it stresses you out to do self-care activities is, just reminding yourself that you're worthy. And I know that sounds like kind of corny, but like it's true. And something I work on when I know, like when I'm feeling burnt out or I can tell like I have not been taking good care of myself. I like to think, what would I tell my students or what would I tell my siblings? So, you know, if I saw my siblings like not doing their skincare routine, well, they're little, so they don't have a skincare routine, but you know, if I saw my siblings like, you know, not going to play outside or like, you know, play sport, or like things that they like that fill them, if they just like stop doing that, like, well, I'm just gonna do some extra homework tonight. Like, absolutely not. Put the homework away. It'll be there in the morning, and go to the neighbor's house. That's what I would tell them. And so when I find it difficult to prioritize myself, I just think about people that I love and what I would tell them. You know, I wouldn't let my best friend go on like this. We would have a moment, like I'd have to get her together. And so sometimes you just have to get yourself together. And if you struggle to do that, just think about a person who's really important to you and what you would want for them.
So with self-care, does it have to be something you do by yourself, or does it have
That's a good question. Oh, I never thought about that. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because maybe your self-care is going out and being social. Again, I can't relate to that at all, but if that's your self-care, go out to that restaurant, to that event, do that, whatever's going to fill you. I know, now that I'm thinking about it, I named so many introvert hobbies and self-care things, but definitely doesn't have to be something you do alone or by yourself. It's just identifying like what makes you feel, you know, positive emotions and happy and full and fulfilled.
Is there a wrong way to do self-care or be?
I don't think there's a wrong way. I do think, kind of, I mentioned before, like there's a difference between like that indulgence and that self-care. So like drinking may make you feel really good and alive. I understand. But if you're drinking every single day like that, it's called alcoholism. Exactly. That's not self-care. Yeah. And so I think when it comes to doing it wrong, I don't think that's possible. I think we could lie to ourselves about what self-care is. You know, we could say, oh, self-care is me talking to my best friend. But if your best friend is like a toxic influence, like, is it really self-care? Or are they enabling your, you know, destructive behaviors? And so I think the only way you could do self-care wrong is if you're not being honest with yourself about what you're getting from whatever self-care activity that is.
So you definitely got to be honest with yourself. So as we kind of get a close to this episode, is there anything that you think that we may have missed, or any questions I may have not asked about any of the topics that you might want to bring up?
I don't think so. I think I rambled a lot on all these topics, and yeah, this was a good talk, I feel like.
Okay. I mean, I think so too. I just want to make sure, because I always like to, because I don't know everything. I don't know all the great questions, but so just in case there's something that
I was just dying to say and I didn't get out. No, I feel good.
Okay, and then lastly, is there anything, what is one or two things that you want to make sure people get from this episode? Like, if they forget everything else, you have to know these two things, or one thing, or whatever.
I would say don't let people shame you for being an introvert is a big one, because again, introverts have a lot of talents and things that make us really great. They're just not necessarily valued in the same way. So don't let anybody shame you for that. And my other thing would be, I feel like there's such distinct good topics. I would say to really trust in your own talents and gifts, especially when it comes to being the first to do something, and don't internalize that pressure from others or from yourself. Just really trust that you're where you need to be, doing what you need to do, and not allowing others who don't understand what you're going through because they're not in your shoes, don't allow them to make you feel bad about that.
I think one thing that I would definitely want people to get away from this episode is, I don't think we said it a lot, but we said it at least once, which is to be patient and give yourself grace.
Absolutely.
Because that's very important in any of the topics that we're talking about today, because if you're too down on yourself or you feel like you're not being as successful as you should be, it can definitely make things worse. So definitely give yourself grace, be patient with your progress, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. So definitely
that's a good one.
be patient and have grace with yourself.
Yes.
But I do want to say thank you again for being on this podcast and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge on these great topics. But before I go, I do want to ask you, is there anything you would like to kind of shout out or plug before you leave?
Nothing specific, and thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. But I guess if you want to stay in touch with me, you can follow me on Instagram. It's just Ari, Ari Owens _. I'm on LinkedIn with my full government name, Ari Owens. And then if you want to collaborate on anything, you could just email me at owensariel1@gmail.com. So any of the mixed race stuff, any of the LGBTQ allyship stuff. And if you want to talk to a fellow introvert about leading, that too, I'm up for it. You can always email me. I love to hear from people. So yeah.
And then, because you said I don't know how much you're doing with you say empowerment. Do you have a website or anything with that?
My website is under construction, so I don't want to share that with the people just yet.
No, you don't have to.
But definitely, if you email me, I can connect you to any kind of service you want. So I do have an email for. I guess you could email me at rempowers@gmail as well. Okay. But my email is a mess. But yes, you definitely email me there. I will check that email. So
okay. Well, again, thank you for giving your wisdom and knowledge. And then for our listeners, thank you all for listening. I really hope you guys gain something or learn something new that you can use right now and not in the future, or not just in the future. But again, thank you for listening. And as always, until next time, continue your journey until you reach your success. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Lazenby Experience podcast. I really hope you were able to receive valuable information that will help you take actionable steps to get you closer to achieving your goals. If this is true for you, I would really appreciate it if you share this episode with others, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to continue receiving updates on new episodes. I truly am excited about how my experience, the Lazenby Experience, can make a difference in your life. Again, thank you for listening to the Lazenby Experience podcast. And until next time, continue your journey until you reach your success.